This week we have our very own Karen Cotton, Research Communications Director within the Research and Innovation. Karen, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am usually on the other side of the introductions, so I hope you'll get something out of what I have to say today. It is about crafting your personal, professional research brand. And as we go through today's session, if you're not already following PVAMU Research, which is our name on all social media platforms, if you would do so now, go ahead and go to whatever social media you have and follow PVAMU Research. That's on Twitter, that's on Instagram, that's on LinkedIn, that's on YouTube, everywhere that there's social media. We are PVAMU Research. So today we're going to talk about three things, and we're going to go a little bit into detail on all three things. One is about your research brand. We're going to talk about what is a research brand and why is it that you need it. We're going to talk about the identity, who you are in public spaces. We're going to talk about those public spaces. And then we're going to talk about how you would go about developing a strategy to maximize your brand as a researcher. And if you have any comments about today's session, please use on any social media platform the hashtag PVAMU RITI. So identity. What is a research brand identity? Well, a brand identity is a way to communicate with the world. And it's a way to kind of set you apart from everyone else who's doing the same thing or something similar to what it is that you're doing. Kind of set yourself apart from everyone else. And by creating a brand that encourages people to engage with you based on who you are and what you represent to the world. When I think about researchers, some of the things that come up is, why do I need a brand identity? Why do I need to engage in any way with anything other than a refereed journal? Well, this is a little bit interactive, so I'm gonna ask you, if you think about a researcher, a current researcher, who is in social media spaces, who is interviewed often, maybe had his own television show at one time, is all over social media platforms, all social media platforms. Okay, now this is the way to describe him. This is part of his branding. He has the same haircut from year to year. He wears a long white lab coat. And whenever you see him, he has a bow tie. I'm going to give you a few minutes, but just write in the chat box, who do you think I'm talking about? This is a scientist.
Yes, yeah, Bill Nye in the chat box.
Bill Nye, the science guy. So why did you know that? Based on the things that I said, why did you know that? You know that because of his branding. He's done a great job. Him and the people around him have done a great job of building his brand. When I said that bow tie, when I said a long white lab coat, you probably knew immediately who I was talking about. And here's another guy. If you know who he is, put it in the chat box. He does a great job of building his personal brand, building his brand as a researcher. And so some of the ways that you can set yourself apart in your field is to cultivate a brand that makes everyone know that you know who you are, you know what you stand for, you know the things that you're going to say yes to, you know the things that you're going to say no to, you know the kind of partnerships and collaborations that you're looking for, and that you would participate in, you know who you are. And when you are clear on who it is that you are, then people know how to engage with you, what things they want to reach out to you about, and and that helps you to keep the main thing the main thing. So it's a way to project who you are and what's important to you to the general public. And with regard to your research, it helps to um, let the masses know what are the grand challenges that you plan to address in your research. So if there's someone across the globe who has that same interest, or if there's a research project that you and your expertise would add to, they know how to reach out to you because they know what you stand for. So strategy, we've talked about identity, we've talked about the public space, and now let's talk about strategy. So strategy. So when you are thinking about research, thinking about building, crafting your research brand, you've got to have a strategy about it. Why is it that I'm doing this, right? So when I am visible in external spaces, when I am visible in spaces other than referee journals, which definitely are important, when I am visible in those other spaces, then other people have access to me and my research. It's not something that's done in a silo. It's not something that only the people in my lab know about. It's not something that only people that um, read those referee journals and are seeking out something specific um, have access to. That gives me access and gives access to the larger community, global community, to the research that I'm doing. My research is important, and I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it to share with the world because I want to contribute to my field. And I think what I'm doing is a great contributor to the field. So it helps others know what it is that you're doing. And it helps you to filter. As I said just a little bit ago, it helps you keep the main thing, right? So if you are uh, asked to do something and it is not aligned with what it is that you believe in, it helps you to say no to things. And it helps you to decide what it is that you need to say yes to as well. If you are in your early career, this is a way to describe what your ambitions are, what your goals are. Helps you to stay on that path, to be clear about what body of work you want to amass during your career and where you want to go with that body of work. And if you're later in your career, this is a way to sort of describe your body of work, if you will. This is a way to look back at the work that you've done and what you want to do in the future and sort of more carefully and clearly define it. So there was a research project, and they were asked, can you name a scientist? Most people know who this guy is, right? This is Albert Einstein. Most people know who he is. But when tasked with naming a current scientist, other than the two we've already talked about, 19% of people could not name a current scientist. In the current age of the 24-hour news cycle, we've got Twitter that is constantly moving. Twitter, um, the way that to think about Twitter is it's like a moving river or ocean or whatever. But once you jump in, it's a different it's a different body of water every time you jump in. So it's not stagnant. It's not like Facebook. If you go to Facebook, it's the same thing. Your posts are going to be there. With Twitter, it's constantly moving. So you constantly have to have things on Twitter because it's gone. So with the age of social media, with the age of the 24-hour news cycle, tomorrow we're on to something different. So you've got to make sure that you're in those spaces so that you are top of mind. So naming a scientist, most people today cannot name one, but with research, with branding your research, you could be that person that people think about when they have a challenge. I've told the story about one of the researchers here at Prairie View, Dr. Logan, who did some research on mass shootings. And just at about the time that he completed his research, he attended a session that we did in the Office of Research and Innovation, the Division of Research and Innovation. And we talked about branding, a similar session to what we're doing now. And he took everything that we said to heart and started his professional branding. Well, unfortunately, there was a mass shooting. And because he was in the social media spaces, media entities started reaching out to him, and he was asked to do a few interviews because of his research on mass shootings. He was right where he needed to be during that 24-hour news cycle. And he was able to lend his scientific voice to the mass media. So he was in the right place at the right time. By crafting your research brand, you make it easy for people to know what kinds of things they can reach out to you for. So we want to make sure that we are doing that. And again, if you're on social media, use the hashtag PVAMU RITI. So after you've defined your brand identity, so getting it out into the world is pretty straightforward. You can, if you get good results, you want to publish papers, you speak at conferences, succinctly describe who you are in your bio and promote your brand. If you're speaking at a conference, if you're on social media platforms, let the world know that you're speaking at those conferences, or let them know after you've spoken at those conferences. If you publish a paper, wonderful. We're very excited that you published a paper. If you get funding, let the world know about it, because if there is a collaborator, if there is the next big thing, they know who you are and they know how to connect with you, even if they are not a person or an entity or a university or a person at a university that is going to reach out to the refereed journals that you're in. If you post about it in your social media spaces or on your blog or on LinkedIn, then they know how to reach you. They know how to go and look up that article, that paper that you published. They know how to reach out to you. So again, another way to collaborate. And please, if you have any questions, please add them in the chat box. Always promoting your brand. So in my research for today's session, one of the things that I kept coming across is social media is the new inbox. And what do I mean by that? Instead of someone reaching out to you via email, if you are in a social media space, they can immediately connect with you no matter where they are. You can participate in Zoom conferences. You can have a hashtag or that you're researching and connect with people all over the world. So instead of doing things like, of course, it's always going to be there, but doing things like emailing the person and waiting on that to respond, you can connect with someone immediately via most types of social media. So one of the people that kept coming up was Rob Brown. Now, Rob Brown is a global, you can see there, global networking expert. He's got a book out about building your reputation, which is crafting your research brand. And one of the things that he says is social media is a new inbox. And I want to share just a little bit of what he says with you. Just really quick, are you able to hear that, Kim?
No, we couldn't hear the audio.
We'll get it for you.
We still can't hear it.
Can't hear it? Okay,
Um,
no problem. Were you going to say something, Kim?
I was just gonna say, I think the audio option is if you go up to view options and click that little down box, it'll have you at the very top of your screen. There might be 3 dots over to the right. If you click there, it'll say share audio or.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Let's see.
She said to me, how much business have you got
Here.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
from all of this networking? Because I've not seen you. It's a fair question, and I didn't know the answer. So I went into my office, I did some checking, and this is my track record for 2 years of networking. Have a look at this and be impressed. I went to 126 business-related events. I spent 284 hours of contact time, pressing the flesh, shaking hands, saying hello to people, swapping cards. That's not including travel to and from the events. How many days out of my life was that? I spent $7,485 on breakfast, lunches, dinners, memberships, bacon sandwiches. And I collected 987 business cards.
You can increase the volume.
How much
You
business
can hear it now.
all of that activity in 2 years? And I'll give you a clue. It's a really round number. Nothing. It felt like I was busy. There was always another event to go to. There was always another business card to collect. There's always another hand to shake. But in reality, I got no business from all of that activity. And when I realized this, it was a moment of intense shame. I was humiliated. I felt a lot of regret that I'd wasted all this time, particularly as I'd only been married a couple of years. And I made the decision that something had to change. I had to think a little bit differently. I either went back to teaching, which for me was a failure, or I became world-class at this networking. It always puzzled me why some people got the business and some didn't. How some people stood out and some didn't. So I started to look into it, and I thought, if some people are making money from this networking and business stuff, then if I do what they've done, I can get the same results. So I began to be a student of selling yourself. And I started to notice what made some people stand out and what didn't. And I'm going to share with you what I found. And to do that, I'm going to explain to you the problem. And the problem is in one word: noise. It's very noisy out there. Let me explain this noise to you. There are millions and millions of digital TV channels all over the world now. Millions of audio channels and radio channels. You can listen and watch anything you like at any time of the day or night. It's noise. There are so many mobile phones now, muscling in on our lives, making more noise. Social media is the new inbox. You conquered your old inbox, and now you've got 3 or 4 other inboxes and loads of other messages and loads.
Social media is the new inbox. Social media is the new inbox. It's the new way to connect with people. And that kept coming up time and time again as I was preparing for today's session. So I want you to consider that. I want you to consider, what would that mean for you if you began to use social media as a way to connect with people? If you began to use social media as a way to reach out to others in your field, what would that mean to you? How how would your day be different? So if you're a researcher, why would you use social media? It's a way of exchanging information. It's a way of collaborating, doing research outreach, making global connections. As I mentioned earlier, publicizing your research papers. It can also have an impact on your career. It can help you stay abreast of current research in your field. If you are moving from one position to another, one university to another, if you are seeking to be on state or national or international committees or boards, it's a way for committees to find out what you are about, what you stand for, what are the things that you've been involved in, and how you can add to whatever the committee or board is. And it's a way of facilitating discussions. And one of the important things is that it's a way for the next generation to find out what you're doing. It's a way for you to reach out to that next generation to make them aware of the work that you're doing and perhaps see themselves in you. So choosing a social media platform, there are so many, but the ones that are used the most are Facebook. Many of us know Facebook, and many of us have a personal Facebook page. But I'm not talking about your personal Facebook page. This session, this RITI session, is not about your personal social media at all. This is something separate. This is who you are as a person who does research and building your research brand. This is not about posting the pictures of your daughter's birthday. This is not about that. This is about you doing the work that you do, the thing that you have dedicated your life to doing, that research. That's what this is about. So who do you want to talk to? And who do you want your audience to be? Who is it that needs to know about the work that you're doing? That's who your audience is. So whatever it is that you're doing, whatever social media you use and the things that you post, it will always be about connecting with who it is that you want your audience to be. What kind of activities are you interested in connecting with on social media? Are you looking at maybe writing a paper, publishing with someone? Are you interested in collaborating on research? Are you interested in connecting with non-scientists, non-researchers, people on the committees that I talked about, students? Who is it that you're wanting to connect with? And again, how much time do you want to spend on social media? By no means should social media become that one more thing that you have to do. We don't want that to happen at all. But it is something that you may want to consider. So you can see we have a funnel here. Why would we have a funnel? Well, I spoke earlier about using social media to make the main thing the main thing. Well, that's why I've got a picture of a funnel here. When you know who you are, when you've got that identity, when you know what you want to portray to in public spaces, and when you've got a strategy about what it is that you want to portray, then it makes it much easier because you're streamlining as you make those decisions about who you are. You're streamlining your social media and what it is that you want to put out there. It helps you filter and keep the main thing the main thing. As opportunities come your way, you can filter them. It'll help you to know what to say no to, build awareness, consideration. What portion of your audience would consider connecting with you? Preference. What portion of your audience would prefer to connect with you over someone else? And what portion of your audience would advocate for you or would say, hey, you need to connect with this person or that person. You need to make sure you connect with Dr. John Doe or Jane Doe. Social media how-tos. So just some quick how-tos with regard to social media. We'll talk first about Twitter. Twitter is the one that I mentioned earlier that it's sort of like stepping into a river. You can't step into the same river twice because it's always moving. Twitter is something that you have to tweet often. And I'm going to give you some tips in just a second about how to do that. I'm not saying that you have to tweet yourself manually several times a day or several times a week. But in order to stay top of mind, you got to find some tools that'll help you do that so that you are always one of the people that is active, people, you're responding to comments. People come to expect that you're going to tweet at certain times, building up a habit so they know what to expect from you. Tweeting is also a wonderful thing to do if you have something big going on in your lab, if you have something big going on in the field or as part of your research. If you're there and you're live tweeting as things happen, people are engaged in that. That's intriguing to people. So they want to be there with you, travel with you. If you're speaking at a conference, if you tweet a picture of the audience, people want to know about those things. They want to know, well, where is Dr. So-and-so today? What's going on? And of course, using relevant hashtags like PVAMU RITI, which I'm asking you to use today. So TweetDeck and Hootsuite are two things that you can use to schedule tweets. And if you're interested in that, just Google, do a quick Google search of TweetDeck or Hootsuite. I use Hootsuite myself here in the Office of Research and Innovation to manage our multiple social media accounts. And for example, the tweets and Instagram posts about today's event, those were scheduled a few days ago, and they've been going out yesterday, today, and I think there's one that went out just as we started our session today. So you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it several times a day. You can do it at once and schedule it and let it go. And that's a free service. You can also pay to get the premier version, but the free version is fine. You can schedule up to 5 social media posts with Hootsuite, and TweetDeck does the same kind of thing. So Facebook, if you don't already have it, I can recommend that you set up a Facebook page for your lab, for your work, for Dr. Jane Doe, Dr. Jane Doe's lab, but set up a Facebook page for that and use it only for that, not for the birthday party, not for blowing out the candles, but only for your lab research. And make sure that your posts and your links are appropriate for your audience always. And if someone engages with you, if someone retweets, if someone makes a comment about something that you posted, either on Twitter, social media, Instagram, respond, just a quick reply. Start a conversation, engage with the person, and then you become real. Just imagine if there's an 8th grader, someone in middle school who somehow happened upon you on social media, and they can see themselves in you. So that's a way to just easily reach out if there's another researcher in another part of the world who happens upon your research and they make a comment on your post. Engage with them. That could possibly be a collaborator later on. Just start the conversation. And for those who are interested, blogging is another way to engage. And if you blog, you can use your social media sites to push traffic to your blog. And I know I'm throwing out a lot of things to you today. And if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat box. And if you need to, you can reach out to me afterwards. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. One thing that you also need to know is that your personal brand moves with you. So when you become Dr. Jane Doe, um, no matter where you go, we don't want you to go anywhere, but no matter where you go, your followers go with you. So I am aware of a professor at UC Berkeley who decided that he wanted to build his professional brand. And he did that. And before he went to UC Berkeley, he was at a university in Denver. I can't remember which one, but he was at a university in Denver, started social media, gained a huge following. And when he went to UC Berkeley, he brought his followers with him to UC Berkeley. And that was actually part of his negotiation with UC Berkeley because he had well over 100,000 followers. He was able to say, okay, I'm going to start using UC Berkeley. And that was actually a negotiation point for him. Not that we want you to leave, but wherever you go, there you are. So, and when you build your brand, you elevate the field, whatever field it is that you're in, you elevate the university that you're at, and of course, you elevate your professional brand. So this person you see from the lab bench. So she has, let's see, she's got 18.9 thousand followers on Instagram. And she's got, it's very hard to see, 16.7 thousand followers on Twitter. So that is something that that's clout. That is something that has a value, because when you got that sort of following or higher, or no matter what the number of followers you have, when you start including Prairie View A&M University with that, or when you start saying PVAMU research, then that not only elevates you, but that also elevates the university. So please do a hashtag PVAMU research when you post. I've got another little video that I want to share with you. I'm not going to share too much of it, but let's see if we can do this again. Share computer sound. And I apologize if it's not very loud, but.
I'm Sasha Whitich. I'm a PhD candidate at University of Toronto. I do experiments, I teach, I read, and I write. My work is in a field called structural biology, where I aim to characterize the protein components that make up a bacteriophage. And I do this using a technique called nuclear magnetic resonance, or NMR. And bacteriophage are pretty cool because they're viruses that can infect and kill bacteria, especially bacteria that are now becoming what's called antibiotic resistant. So it's a very exciting field, and I'm happy to be working in it. And I'm also an Instagrammer. Yes, you can find me online, where I use social media to act as an influencer, where I talk about science. And I started doing this to share the work I was doing to more people, so it could be more relatable or accessible. And I also thought, well, this could help challenge the stereotypes we have of scientists, those same stereotypes that are somewhat damaging to young students. And like many great discoveries, what happened next was unexpected. Social media really had a positive impact on my academic journey, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. You see, growing up, I always liked science, but I never really thought I could be a scientist, because to me, well, a scientist looks something like this, or this, and if you're female, well, this. And because these really weren't images I could relate to, I really thought, well, how could I be one too? But still, I went on to university to pursue science, but due to grade 10 careers class, I thought, well, the 3 careers I know of are doctor, teacher, lawyer. Doctor has the most to do with science, I'll take that. But it wasn't university that I got the spark, or the catalyst, if you will, when taking what would become my favorite course, third-year biochemistry, with my favorite professor. And it keeps going on. I love the way that she talked about these things called proteins and how they could dictate our lives and how scientists grapple with the challenge of understanding them. But if we could understand them, what impact could that have on understanding diseases and bettering human health? So off I went to graduate school, where I started much like this comic. At the beginning, I was excited, I was ready, I wanted to do research. But over time, the academic environment really caused my aspirations to grow thin. And it seemed like, well, pepperoni pizza might be the best thing I could hope for. You see, I was met with an environment that I felt was competitive, not collaborative, and I didn't see very many role models I could look up to, especially female role models. And I had no idea what these hours, weeks, months, years of pipetting at the lab bench would lead up to. I didn't know what careers were out there. So I became deflated, discouraged. There were times I'd sit in the parking lot of my car trying to summon the energy to go up to lab. My mantra became, just one more day, just one more day, just one more day.
Let's see if I can get to the part, another part. So one of the main takeaways from this video is she used social media to sort of revitalize her love of science. She used social media to connect with others. And in another part of the video, she talks about how she was able to connect with people who were younger than her so that they could see themselves as a scientist. So using social media not only benefits you, but it can also benefit others as well. As we've been going through today's session, I've said a few things about hashtags. Please use the hashtag PVAMU. So I want to give you just some basics about hashtags and how they can be used and why you should use them. Should you decide to start the journey of building your online research brand. So hashtag basics. So always start with a hashtag, for example, hashtag PVAMU. And the way that you use them is make sure that there are no spaces, no punctuations other than the pound sign or the hashtag. Those are the only symbols or punctuations that you should have. Make sure your account, your branded researcher account is public. If it's private, then other people won't be able to find you. They won't be able to find that vital work that you're doing, and unless they are already connected with you on social media. Don't string too many words together. Try to keep it succinct and to the point. Short and to the point, and easy to remember. PVAMU RITI. Use relevant and specific hashtags. If it's something that's too obscure, then people won't be able to relate to you. It'll be too hard to drill down and find out what it is that you're talking about, just to the point. Hashtags, sometimes you'll see a post somewhere and it'll have 8 hashtags. While you're certain to catch someone with some of those hashtags, it's much better to be clear and specific about what you want. This is one of those instances where too much is not always better. So I want to thank you all for joining us today for RITI. And if you have any questions, this is the time to ask those questions. And I've also listed the resources that we used today. And encouraging all of you to follow us on social media.
So Karen, there is a question in the chat box. It says, is Facebook as good as other platforms? which platform is most useful? I know our students use Twitter more than others.
Facebook is, if you talk to the students, they'll say that their parents have taken over Facebook, and so they don't really use Facebook as much. However, social media is one of those things where it just kind of depends on your audience. It depends on who you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach other researchers, Facebook is probably fine. The thing that is most used right now is Instagram. On Instagram, you're going to catch both the researchers, the students, as well as the various organizations, USDA, NSF. They all have social media. So if there's an article or if there's something if you just got funded for something for NSF, then you can put a hashtag NSF, and if their social media person likely scrolls to find out or does a search to find out who's tagging us, who's using the hashtag NSF or using the @ at NSF, and they'll become aware of it, and you may get retweeted by NSF, and that can't be a bad thing, because the way that works is if the National Science Foundation retweets you or post or likes or comments on your social media platform, it's going to go out to everybody that they're connected with. So that one tweet that you did is going to go out to everyone that's connected with the NSF. So that can't be bad, right? Are there other questions? Let's see. Okay.
There's no other questions in the chat box.
Okay. Someone says Mark Roper has made a career on YouTube for science. That's true. Yes, students are using Twitter more than others, and Instagram as well.
Can I just, Twitter, I know there's a hashtag on Twitter called #science or #Twitter science or science Twitter. I get them backwards sometimes. But during the pandemic, I know that I followed a lot of scientists and a lot of the researchers I know personally who are doing SARS-CoV-2 research and COVID research. And they were using the Twitter platform as a way to communicate also, because if you're in Europe and you're in Texas, you're on a different time zone. So they were using Twitter a lot to communicate faster and in the middle of the night than using email.
Absolutely. And we also have a scientist here who is doing some research on social media. And he's had some tremendous success tracking things like when there is a weather disturbance. So he's had some tremendous success and able to make some great connections in that way. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And if you are on social media, please be sure to follow us on at PVAMU Research on all social media platforms, including LinkedIn and YouTube. Today's session will be available on our YouTube channel, which is PVAMU Research. And we encourage you to follow us. Thank you again. Have a great day.